Well, good afternoon, Kevin. Lovely to see you. Thank you very much for your time.
Good to be here. Thank you very much. I look forward to our chat.
Indeed. So, for the audience that's watching this particular video, as you would know, we are taking some time to introduce our allies and allow them to tell their stories in their own words. So, in this video, we wanted to learn more about Kevin. Kevin wanted to hear more about your story, how you navigated your career and your life to now be where you're at. I also would be curious to learn about what are the key lessons that you've taken from your vast and impressive experience? Perhaps what has influenced your leadership style? And of course, why have you decided to join the Summit Leadership Alliance? And with that, maybe we should just start with asking you to tell us your story, Kevin.
Oh, thank you. So my story, I guess my story, let's start at the ending. So
Yes,
I just finished my career in 2023 as CEO of SkipTheDishes, a fine Canadian brand that I
of
was
course.
proud to be a part of and lead for almost 5 years. That's what I guess I'd be most known for, considering its popularity and interest to Canadians. But before
Yes.
that, 40 some odd years before that, I began in sales and marketing and
Mhm.
recognized early on that the levers that needed to be pulled in terms of activating sales and brand experience and how brand can enable businesses to be successful. I I've been in a number of different sectors. I mean, I everything from broadcasting to uh, to healthcare, packaged goods, and office products, if you can imagine.
Mhm.
And so, every step along the way, I enjoyed greater responsibility. I had some great bosses, great leaders that mentored me and looked out for me and supported me. And I think I earned that support because I was really focused on execution, and I had
Mm.
the pleasure to lead a lot of teams that executed brilliantly and being given, really, difficult problems to solve over the years, and for the most part, being successful in overcoming them. I've been a part of 5 mergers in my
Wow.
career, 4 of them in about a 10-year period. So I
Whoa.
know a lot about change and
Oh my God.
transformation and I guess the lesson I would learn about that kind of disruption is just the opportunities. You need to see it as an opportunity, and it's sometimes very difficult because there's a personal element to it, but there is such opportunity in the midst of change that I certainly, for me, that's kind of enabled my success, is
Mm.
looking at it like that.
Mm. And Kevin, when you reflect, maybe what we can do is perhaps reflect a little bit about what do you feel were the biggest sort of lessons or most important moments or ahas that led you to the skip the dishes opportunity? And then I would be curious to know to hear your experience about being the CEO of Skip the Dishes and the challenges you faced and how you sort of approached them. So far, what I heard you say is that um, having exceptional mentors along the way, bringing curiosity and focus on execution seem to be emerging as sort of key lessons. Is that?
Yeah, true. I mean, curiosity, always curious, never satisfied. Always, but I never, I don't think I ever walked into a boss's office, or a leader's office or anybody I reported to and said, I need to get paid more. I need to have more
Right.
responsibility. I just always looked at the organization and understood what the organization's goals were. And I found my responsibility in that and how I can contribute. And because of that, because you're doing that kind of work within your own area, doing a good job in your own area, for me, ultimately, I just gained more and more responsibility and was exposed to different parts of the business.
Yeah.
And I found, I mean, marketing was kind of that cost center, 30, 40 years ago. It was seen as that
Yeah.
cost, and to a lot of finance leaders, CFOs, it was something that it was a black box that needed to be open. And I always wanted to have that conversation with finance because I always saw finance as my greatest ally because they're ultimately going to be in a room someday and they're going to be voting,
Oh,
if
yeah.
you
Yeah. Well,
will.
exactly.
And
Exactly.
I always wanted the area that I was responsible to be seen as critical to enable the business. So
There is a very, very interesting parallel to the story you just shared with the experience the tech executives have gone through in the last 30, 40 years as well. I think there is a very similar parallel story where IT has been historically seen as a back office support function, but it is clear and evident that the promise and opportunity is much greater. As a matter of fact, I would say it has over rotated that actually technology is becoming a competitive advantage for tomorrow. So I would be really interested to get your thoughts on like what was this experience like? You as a leader of a particular function seen as sort of supporting back office function, but then successfully emerge as an enterprise-wide capability to the point where you actually ended up being the CEO of one of the most recognized, successful Canadian tech-enabled companies.
thank you.
Yes.
You know, so let me just start at the end again.
Yeah.
When I was CEO, um, I didn't come from the tech world. I had never really been responsible for, building a tech platform or enabling tech. Uh, so I had a lot to learn too. But one thing I found early on, we had a magnificent platform. Really, it was the difference maker for our brand. In fact, the US players that are in the country, and it still are, our platform was a better platform.
Yeah.
It allowed us to turn a profit before anybody else actually in the world in food delivery or in rapid delivery was able to. And it was because of the work that the tech team had done. But so now you've created the opportunity and I even had a bias,
Hmm.
having come from a back office function, supposed back
Yeah. Yeah.
office. I still had a bias for, wow, we're spending a lot of money there. So what I look to our leaders to tell me is, okay, so there are things that it's our bedrock, we must spend on, but tell me how you can help us here. And tell me how, if you understood the business plans. In fact, I want you to come into the room and be part of the team that are talking about the future and the innovation that's going to be required. And so, while questioning the value, I knew from my own experience that having a seat at the table is critical in being
Yeah.
able to see the business. So I coach everyone, not just the tech part of our organization, everyone to talk to everyone, to
Yes.
understand the business, not just the overarching business objectives, but the business objectives of each key area of the business, because only then are you recommending solutions without bias. And
Yes.
I think, like everyone, tech leaders are no different than everybody else. They want
Yeah.
to do something really cool and neat, but if it's not ultimately supporting the business objective, short term, long term, you're going to have some resistance, and it's about creating the condition for a
Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think that's critical. That's really kind of the lessons I learned. I've been curious the whole way, and I don't have a business, I don't have a business education. My career has been my education. And so, yeah, I mean, I've always been very undaunted. I've heard no a lot, but I don't just go back and ask the same thing the next month or the next year. I kind of find a way to sell that.
Oh, right. 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 So Kevin, when you reflect to those 5 years when you were at Skip, the growth was tremendous.
Mhm.
This happened. You actually, if I understand, well, I do the timeline. You joined in 2018, just a couple of years before COVID hit. Um, can you tell us a little bit about what was that experience like for you
Yeah,
personally?
actually, yeah, I almost think like it would be great. It's a tragedy, of course, and so many people lost their
Yeah,
lives were affected, but to have that kind of global disruption and you
yeah,
be a part of the team that managed to survive it,
yes,
as many didn't, many
yeah,
businesses didn't, but you know, we were already on a growth trajectory that was significant. I mean, rapid delivery, food delivery was, in our case, food delivery was already, I mean, the trajectory was like that.
yes,
But, no one was really ready for how that was going to ramp because our business became an essential service very early on. We weren't even sure actually at the beginning. And this is how, innovation came out of the early days of COVID in terms of contactless delivery. I mean, municipalities were saying everybody stay at home.
yeah, yeah,
The idea that a courier could actually go into a restaurant with live people, pick up something, go to somebody's door and drop it off was no, no, we can't do that. That those are super spreader,
yeah,
events
yeah,
if you've got 1,000 couriers working on a shift. So
yeah,
we had to come up with innovation, and one of them was contactless delivery. Um, you know, everybody, all of the platforms very quickly thought of their form of it, and we were able to support it. That was an early tech win for us, is how can we do that? Because ultimately, buttons needed to be pressed to say that the actual delivery had happened. So we had to overcome that. But the early days, you know, there were some real management lessons, certainly for me, and I think the rest of our team in the way that we handled it. We all got in a room the day before we sent our entire organization home. We had probably at that time, almost 3,000 employees, and our entire customer care is still in Canada.
mm,
And, we sent everybody home on a Friday, and we still had to manage that shift that night.
yeah,
And we
yeah,
managed to do it without skipping a beat. We went out and bought every single laptop that was available in the entire country, I think in one PO. We bought everything because we just felt like if we have an opportunity here
yeah,
to um, to not only keep the business going, but to increase the trajectory if we do the right things. So we build the
yeah,
right infrastructure. And infrastructure was a problem for us at the time. Um, there were leaks in the boat that we needed to focus on and solve right away. We needed to stop, some of the engineering functions that were 2, 3 years down the road. The benefit was going to be 2, 3 years down the road, and we need to shore up our
yeah,
platform.
yeah.
At the same time, we need to hire so many people. We added, I think, 1,500 people in about 2 years.
Wow.
But I remember getting everybody in a room together, and not just my direct reports, but leaders of different functions across the organization. We just approached it. We were on a call every day for, I think, 2 months, 6 days a week, the
Wow.
same group of people, mandatory, even if it even if the issue that we're discussing wasn't about you, so that you could hear everything. So everything that you were doing, you understood the perspective and had the perspective of what everyone else was doing and the problems that they were having. And, a lot of great solutions came out of the conversation from people who had been disparate. Like they wouldn't
Yeah,
even have been invited into the room. I think we had 25 people. And I don't think I know that kind of energy is what allowed us to push forward, especially in the early days, and be able to accept the challenge of what the business could be.
yeah. This is, it must have been absolutely fascinating to live through that and to come on the other side as a winner. I mean, Skip clearly is, is one of the winners of that industry. Um, and obviously we,
Survivors.
yeah,
Yeah. I
survive.
mean, yeah, we won. Look, we earned our share of the
Yeah,
Canadian. market, but we
Yes.
did, and we earned it early, and we earned it. We're still earning it. Um, and but you also, great marketing is great, but it's great. But if the customer experience suffers, like it's just wasted dollars. We all know that.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah.
it was as a CEO, new to the business, I had to, take off my marketing hat and put on my operations hat,
Mhm.
and just focus there.
Mhm.
But thank you.
So,
Thank you for recognizing a successful brand. We're very
no,
proud. I have to
clearly,
be
clearly.
honest.
I mean, absolutely. So, when you look back at those 5 years at Skip and the role you had and what you've lived through and how you championed the organization through this crisis, like what were the most interesting, perhaps important observations or lessons about leadership that you drew from that experience?
Yeah, my my mantra is as is really about communicate. Communicate, communicate, communicate. When you think you've over communicated, communicate some more,
More. Yeah.
right? I even though we were all sitting in our homes, in our home offices, it's easy to get into your box. You need to constantly, as a leader, you need to constantly be networking, not networking for, glory but networking to make you better, to make your job better, to make so that when you're given an opportunity to take a position or to present, you've got a number of heads around the table that are nodding in your favor, especially in the tech world,
Yes.
right? In the tech function. To have the marketing team as an ally and an advocate
Yeah.
at a major presentation, to have the finance leader already know what you're going to say, to have ops and different parts of this HR know what you're going to say and be in support, like it's it's game changing
Yeah.
for, especially in the context of tech leaders.
Yes. The stakeholder engagement and communication, communication, communicate, and I'm sure you agree, compelling storytelling.
Yeah, and it's critical. And look, it can be like it can't be fake. You
Yeah,
know,
of course.
I'm about as honest as you'll find. Like I have had lots of leaders sit in front of me, and it's just so fake. You're checking a box, you're
Yeah.
going through the motion. Somebody told you you need to go out, but you really don't care that much because you're really only concerned about your
Yeah.
thing. It
Yeah.
has to be authentic.
Yeah, I agree.
You
I
know.
agree. I agree. So to summarize what I've heard from you so far in terms of lessons learned and what worked for you is curiosity, I think is constant,
Mhm.
part of the story. Um, I think there's ability to recognize when the door opens and then sort of kick the door open and walk through. So take advantage, like recognize the opportunities and have the courage to actually walk through those doors and take
Yeah.
advantage of the opportunities.
Mhm.
The third thing that I heard um, is focus on execution. That's where we actually create value. Talk is cheap, but focus on execution.
Yeah.
uh, then the fourth one you mentioned is communicate, communicate, communicate. Make sure that everyone around the table is well prepared and knows what you're going to say before you go and say it, right?
Yeah,
So,
and maybe it's not even the talk track you're going to give, but they have knowledge of because you've articulated things to them,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, that somebody
yeah,
nods ahead and goes, "Yeah, oh
yeah.
yeah,"
So
you
you're
know.
building the alliance. You're building essentially
Right.
build the alliance everywhere
Totally.
you go, right?
Totally.
And then the last thing that you said also, I remember you mentioned as you throughout your career, you had access to people who are mentoring you, helping you, right?
Mhm.
Some great
Mhm.
people you've met along the way.
Yeah.
Uh, I would love to spend some time on that and that mentorship. And obviously, you have decided to retire, but you still, of course, want to contribute and make impact. So I would love to get your thoughts about like your views on importance of mentorship and why do you want to continue being a mentor to others?
Yeah, I'm still, I'm still I wouldn't say coaching, but I'm still working with a group of leaders three CEOs. And that is more, I'm more acting as a sounding board now, somebody
Yeah.
who's sort of seen most of the challenges or many challenges, no, most of the challenges, many of them, and just offering being a sounding board and helping people reflect and giving them real life examples of when I think, things work for me and where I've seen them work before. So I love that part of it. I really do. I two really critical lessons that I learned from mentors. One leader very early on handed me a little card one day, and it was actually his business card. In the back of his business card, he had begun to put on the back, "When in charge, take charge." And that is, when the responsibility is on your shoulders, lead like you own it.
Yeah.
And that breeds confidence in everybody else. And the other one was a career adjustment for me because I think I was at a point where I was a bit too big for my boots. I I'm not going to say that success is going to my head, but I thought I was kind of bulletproof. And I had a leader, a CEO, pull me aside, and he said, sometimes I see you being successful in spite of people or attempting to be successful in spite of people. You need to be successful with people, or you can only be successful with people. And that really changed my
Oh
mindset. My
my God.
responsibility isn't to do everything. My responsibility is to create the condition for people to excel, to do what they do best, and kind of step back, but create the condition for their success.
I love it. That's such a wise perspective, and I think absolutely right perspective for CEO. That's the job.
Yeah,
That's the job, right. And then get out of the way uh, of competent people, assuming
yeah.
you've been successful gathering competent people around you.
Get out
So
of the
that's
way. It's true. Get out of the way. Step back. Get your hands off everything. However, that doesn't mean move on to other things and forget
yeah,
about that.
yeah.
I
No,
I uh,
no, nose in,
I
hands out.
wanted to I ask every time somebody would be in front of me, I'd be asking the questions over and over again. Not to tell them what to do, but to know that
Yeah,
they're on their business.
yeah, yeah. Yes, exactly. So Kevin, you mentioned that you are continuing to mentor and work with um, executive CEOs. Can you tell us a little bit about like whom do you feel would be the best collaborator with you, a client of the alliance that you feel you would be best positioned to help?
Well, I mean, I work with a couple of CEOs, but that's more, leveraging my most recent position. I, I think any group inside of an organization who has an overwhelming, um, responsibility for the future success of the current and future success of the business. In the area of, as we're talking about tech leaders, I have had some words of wisdom for a couple in the past, and it was exactly what I was saying to you before is, you've got to get up from your desk,
Yes,
and you've got to network. Before you can recommend a solution, you have to know the problem. And the problem isn't just, it isn't just tech or IT or a software solution. The problem you're solving for is to the benefit of other parts of the organization. You've got to really understand the business. And let's face it, tech leaders today um, are more important than ever. And the great ones will be the cornerstone of any great organization's success. Um, you know, skip the dishes. Not everyone may look at us first as a tech organization, but we couldn't do what we did
of
without
course.
the best tech.
Absolutely.
It would never have happened. And so, I mean, my coaching mentorship style is mostly just to listen.
Yeah.
I have no problem, you know, calling somebody out on BS.
Yeah.
We all fall, we all fall into that trap. Sometimes very much we like the sound of our own voice. Um, and so I like people who want to be challenged. But I can also appreciate when someone is on the right track and it's the positive reinforcement that keeps them going
Yeah.
and helps them be successful. Sometimes people need course correction. Some people just need to be told to step on the gas.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And Kevin, of course, with your particular profile, which is uh, obviously heavy marketing and business development background, um, leadership of a whole enterprise that is well known, a brand that is highly regarded. Um, I think that you bring a very unique component to the alliance. A very significant part of why we're building the alliance is to help technology leaders understand the opportunity and the need to elevate themselves and become seen and experienced as a peer executive. And to me, your persona, your profile is perfect to help technology leaders interact with and understand firsthand what does it actually mean to be experienced as a peer
Mhm.
business executive, right? So to me, this is really important to mention is that that's a really unique perspective that you bring. And Skip the Dishes, I would suggest, is a perfect organization to experience what you have because it's actually a very elegant blend of strong marketing and brand with technology that enabled the business to grow. So,
Yeah, and operations. I mean, operations is,
yes.
yeah. Operations, I mean, I always thought of myself as a sales marketing. I always, as my career grew, I always felt I was an operator with a
Mhm.
sales marketing
Okay, I
eye.
see what yeah, I see what you mean. I
You
see
know what
what
I'm
you mean.
saying? And you know, looking back on my career, a very early mentor or a mentorship opportunity for me was um, when I was at one of the brands I was at in my past is, we had an e-commerce uh, rather underdeveloped e-commerce business. And I was the marketing guy, and I became responsible for our e-commerce platform. And I remember asking, "Who's responsible for e-commerce?" And I found this person with, one person sitting, and I found this person with one direct report sitting in the very back of the business.
Yeah,
And you know, no wonder we weren't being successful. I brought that person up and they sat alongside me and they attended every meeting because they were the critical part
yeah,
of our future.
yes, yeah.
And so anyway,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So Kevin, the last question that I wanted to ask in this introductory videos is what has compelled you to join the alliance? And maybe you can just share a few words around that, and then we're gonna wrap it up.
well, I just love the idea of a curated team. A, a an ally, a curated list of allies that can, benefit people at different stages of their growth, different stages of their business's growth, and it's just more and more silly ways to put it, but all the quivers in the air, sorry, all the arrows in the quiver, you
Yeah,
pull out one for a different opportunity, and having a list of people who can weigh in with experience um, can really benefit an organization, benefit the individual. I love that idea. I think this is the first time that anybody has sort of asked me to join a group with, you know, expertise and experience across the full spectrum.
yeah. Thank you very much, Kevin. I very much look forward to our collaboration and all the value we'll be creating for Canadian companies. And for those who have seen the video, of course, as you know, other allies are also at your fingertips. So please feel free to watch our other short introduction videos. And if you're interested to learn more about Summit Leadership Alliance, please email us at greetings@thesummitla.com. TechTonic.com. Thank you very much.